Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News Channel. Mr. Jide Ologun is now here, seated in the studio. Well, Mr. Ologun, thank you for keeping faith and for showing up this Sunday. Well, quite a number of issues on the table. We just finished with Jide talking about the showdown, the crisis, the implosion, the factionalization, most certainly, of the People's Democratic Party. We also had Dr. Kabir Adamu commenting on the insecurity in Nigeria and the major crisis, melodrama with the United States, and what he thinks can be done to improve the situation, what has not been done, where the omissions are, and all of that. We had Ms. Omowumi Imokwede, who commented on the G20 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, and what I described as the next major event, which is the January summit of the World Economic Forum in Davos. And she was saying that our company, working with the Nigerian government, is trying to present the Nigeria House for the first time. And she described the content of that Nigeria House. There's a major promenade that has been introduced where countries showcase what they have to advertise their country, to attract investment. So for the first time, we're going to have Nigeria on that promenade. And I was telling her that she can be sure that Arise News will be there. Well, I'm not thinking of going there because Davos is usually too cold in January, you know. And then, of course, we had our first guest, Isiako, Mr. Fred Isiako, who talked about the Nnamdi Kanu case and the implications for national security, the way the matter was handled, either by the team or by the judge, and all of that. And maybe you want to start from there, being an officer in the Temple of Justice yourself.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. Yes, let's start from there. Eventually, the decision was taken and Nnamdi Kanu convicted to life imprisonment. And it is heartwarming to know that there are still two levels of appeal in this matter. You know, the Court of Appeal, then eventually the Supreme Court of Nigeria. And I'm glad that now Nnamdi Kanu is looking in the direction of having seasoned legal practitioners, you know, file an appeal for him, because we cannot fully run away from the dramas that visited the prosecution in court. And I need to say this. In the criminal justice ecosystem, there are three prominent requirements. You talk of thorough investigation, you talk of diligent prosecution before a committed judiciary. And in the course of the trial, you know, when he was arraigned with those charges, he pleaded not guilty, so which started the prosecution rolling. And the burden is on the prosecution to prove those allegations beyond all reasonable doubt. And the prosecution presented 5 witnesses and came to a conclusion before the court that there is a case to answer. But he filed a no-case submission, which the court turned down and said, you must defend yourself. And dramatically, he disbanded his legal team with brilliant senior lawyers there and decided to defend himself. And the Honorable Justice even cautioned at the time that please consider the implications of this, because prosecution has closed already, is for you to defend. And now we are where we are, and all the mannerism and everything, you know, we say those are issues that throw light on the main issues. But by and large, like I said, there is room for appeal. Obviously, there are two sides to this. The side of prosecution is saying justice has been served. and the side of defense, so to say, is saying there hasn't been justice. So we want to monitor this matter to the appellate level. And I know that even though the Supreme Court remains the highest court in the land since 1963 when we became a republic, before then you could further appeal to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council of the UK. We have also the Council of States, by experience in Nigeria, that even after a final conviction, if at all, the Council of State can still grant a pardon. But I want to speak beyond the judicial interventions in this matter, these allegations of terrorism. I advise that the government, and this is speaking to both the executive and the legislative, then bringing in the judiciary, should look at the perceived injustice that pervades all the regions of the country. I've said it. It's not just the Southeasterners, crying foul on marginalization. Recently, I also read that the North, that some have perceived as having a hold on Nigeria, are also saying they are marginalized. So how can we sit back and ensure that indeed the commonwealth of this nation is generated for common good? And let's strike a balance. So the matter is on. Like I mentioned, the doors are still open for the appeal. And I hope at that level that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will embrace fully having a legal team represent him. And that brings us to the issue of insecurity in the land, particularly the representation we have in the United States of America. You know, it's instructive for the Nigerian government to know that America did not just wake up to speak to a situation. There are facts and figures. There are even reports from Nigeria that have been compiled. In fact, they also, appear to know the sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria. And this has been the cry of many of us, that if you don't deal with the sponsors, you cannot effectively handle this situation. And that's what we are having right now. I don't know if anyone has read of kidnapping or terrorism in Dubai, because what Dubai did was to go after the sponsors of Boko Haram in Nigeria, locking around in Dubai, prosecuted them, jailed all of them, to send a message that we do not accommodate terrorism. But here in Nigeria, even though we claim to have identified about 400, we have not taken decisive step. And right now, it's worse, because while we have this team engaging the American government, trying to defend the allegation of genocide against Christians, even though all souls belong to God, back at home, the insecurity is heightened. The latest one being the kidnapping of about 300 students. Dr. Abati, that is troubling. So what has happened to intelligence? You see, and I don't want Nigeria portrayed as a lame nation, because going to the primary level, Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended says that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government.
Shall.
Exactly, not may, shall. And the American government, let's put that in perspective, it's not saying we are coming to attack Nigeria, but saying we are ready to help you. Identify those behind this terrorism in the land. And if that help is open, I expect that the dialogue should be, how do we secure the land?
Because to be fair to the Nigerian government,
yes,
the Nigerian government has said it welcomes cooperation to address this situation. There's no argument about that.
I give an applause to that. You see, but basically, when that move is made, like it was made during the tenure of Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan as the president of Nigeria, during the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, and good a thing you were in government then, how far did the help go? Because what has been revealed is that there are principalities and powers, spiritual wickedness in high places orchestrating the terrorism against this land.
You now agree with the view once expressed by me.
I never
that there is a spiritual side.
But you mentioned demons. And you have not explained to us the form of demons that you encountered.
Yeah,
there.
but we are seeing it. We are seeing it.
You know, and really,
it's a metaphysical
disturbing.
side to politics.
It's disturbing, particularly when there had been pointers to some highly placed and influential Nigerians for having bias for the terrorism against the land. So this is a serious issue, and I wish the president the best at a time like this. I mean, basically, he is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The command given is one thing, carrying out that command is another thing. So we need, and right now, you see, going to the history of the terrorism in the land, it was Mohammed Yusuf that started this around 2002 with an ideology that Western education is evil, you know, and that is forbidden. Boko Haram, you know. I'm worried that he could not even pronounce book very well, so decided to call it Boko, but that is by the way. And when he was taken out in 2009, you know, full violence was unleashed on the nation, and it has now grown to Islamic State of West Africa. When he was taken out, Shekau came in, and now the international terrorist groups are likely to have hijacked this local terrorism, giving it the fuel to escalate. So at this point in time, we are where the elders expressed proverbially that when the Iroko tree is tender, you can cut it down. But when it grows up, you must pour libation before you deal with it. And I think that libation is coming out from this offer of foreign support. America is saying, we can support you. So I wish the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces the wisdom of God, not just to identify those who perhaps are so close to him, but are behind the evil in the land, so that we can deal with this. And that takes us to the G20 meeting. Obviously, in public relations, we studied what is called the economic environment. So if you invite me to come and invest somewhere, I want to see the feasibility of securing my investment. And let me say this. It's good for Africa to come together with the strong economies of the world and talk about how we can maximize our resources and have shared value. The population of the world, as we speak, is around 8.2 billion, out of which Africa is about 1.5 billion, representing about 19% of the population. And I read a report that about 40% of the whole resources of the world are domiciled in Africa. So what has Africa done with that to prosper the continent? And a wise man, Aesop, said, after much is said and done, more is said than done. So I agree with that submission that let's come back home, different African nations, see how we can set up structure for creating wealth, rather than just going around talking about it, the obvious. So these are the issues. How can Africa maximize the abundant resources we have to generate common wealth for common good? We can keep talking and discussing about it. If we don't move in the direction of industrializing, creating jobs for the upcoming ones, and reviving the economy of Africa and securing that revived economy, we will just be attending meetings. And I pray that some of these steps will be taken pragmatically, so that when we show up at the World Economic Forum, we will be more practical than just doing the talking. So on the issue of PDP, I agree that if the stalwarts of PDP are supporting somebody in another party, it should be a very difficult war for PDP to engage. But whether the corpse is being prepared for burial or not, I may not speak to that, because I'm not a mortician or whatever. But obviously, PDP has a lot of trouble to cope with. And again, I applaud that council. The APC should not sit back now and think all is well, because the realities on ground can also galvanize another force entirely from those that people expect should form the formidable opposition. And if some are blaming APC for bringing crisis to PDP, I think that is a lame blame, because you are also expected to secure your house. The elders have a saying that if the wall does not open its mouth, the lizard may not be able to come in. So I wish the PDP the best. And again, speaking to the insecurity in the land, when we have politicians operating the way they operate, you know, it's disturbing, as if it's a do or die situation. And that is why when Canada came to a conclusion recently that a Nigerian seeking asylum was linked with APC and PDP operations in Nigeria, therefore that is likely to be a terrorist. Some said, why? But you can see how they operate. And I wish that that adrenaline, that zeal, that force is moved away from politicking to focus on governance.
Okay, Mr. Ologun, one other issue that I think you may have overlooked is this closure of schools by the federal government, Ministry of Education. About 41 unity schools shut down. Some other states, Katsina, Kebbi, Kwara, they will also shut down schools. In Katsina, boarding houses have been shut down. No more hostels. People now can come from home. Now, what will be the long-term implication for education in Nigeria? In a country where we're told about over 10 million, according to UNESCO, are out-of-school children. Some of these kids, if they are kept out of school for any period longer than temporary was the word that the federal government used. Some of them will end up as foot soldiers for Boko Haram. Some of them may not even want to go back to school. Maybe some of the girls will even be pregnant for one reason or the other by the time the federal government says you cannot go to school. Now, how can government make sure that these are not the prospects and that these schools become safer?
See, I listened to Doctor making
That's
reference...
Dr. Adamu.
Yeah, Dr.
Addressing
Adamu,
this
making
subject.
reference to what was obtained from World Bank to, You see, and he mentioned a vital issue. Implementation is important. And that's why on the scale of perception, some may think that we are being permissive to the insecurity in the land. And obviously, when schools are shut like this, it may appear that Boko Haram movement is winning, because what is the vision of Boko Haram? To eradicate Western education, to stampede Western education. And when you talk about terrorism instills fear, oppresses the people, destabilizes. And so the big question is that who is winning at this stage? And the government should be seen to be in charge. And that means that our mechanism for protecting students is weak. I keep wondering, taking away 300 students. And this is where I think we need to wake up to governance and step politics aside. And it's really, 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 really worrisome. And I hope that at this point in time, the Federal Executive Council, we have to carry out an emergency meeting, carry out consultations with local authorities, and see how these issues can be addressed. But by and large, if we don't go headlong in dealing with the foundational prompters of insecurity in the land, we'll just be grappling with the symptoms, because these people appear to be having the upper hand. Look at how military personnel are taken out and things. It's horrible. But we pray that the window of opportunity that is open now for global partnership in fighting this will come. And that's why you will agree also that there is a need to now classify this group. If IPOB was proscribed as a terrorist group, then why is Boko Haram still considered as an insurgency? Insurgency is when you are fighting for a cause. What cause is Islamic State of West Africa fighting for? If not to Islamize Nigeria, bring jihadis and destroy things. And we're a prayerful nation. We commit everything to God.
Meanwhile, Mr. Ologun,
yes,
let's go to Tanzania. Tanzania President Samia Suluhu Hassan has appointed both her daughter and son-in-law to senior government positions as part of her wider cabinet reshuffle. In a televised announcement from the State House, Samia named 27 ministers and 29 deputies. Her daughter, Wanu Abdi Amir, becomes Deputy Minister of Education, while her husband, Mohammed Nchegewa, has been appointed Minister of Health. The shake-up saw 7 senior officials removed, with Ridwani Kikwete, son of former President Jakaya Kikwete, also joining the cabinet as Minister of Public Service and Management. The new cabinet will be sworn in on Tuesday. So we talk about nepotism in Nigeria, but obviously it's not only in Nigeria that you have nepotism. And this is Samia Suluhu Hassan, who came in as a wave of, fresh air, but she's turned out to be even worse than the predecessors. Our predecessor, who died in office, who was more or less an autocrat of some sorts, and now she has followed in the same path. But usually on the morning show, we hear the story from some of the co-anchors that, women are the best materials for leadership. Women will do very well. But we have seen in Nepal, we have seen in Tanzania, women not leading right. It's this thing about leadership. I have argued that, look, it's not about gender. It's about character. It's about who you are. But I don't know whether you think it's okay for the president of Tanzania to put her daughter, her son-in-law, and to bring the son of a former president into the cabinet in what I think looks like nepotism. But do you think it doesn't matter? Maybe when you are there, when you are at the temple, you eat from the temple, and you give your family too.
Doctor, without gender bias, I think leadership is leadership. Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor of Germany, did excellently well in office, though a woman. So that is for leadership. And I'm not happy about what has happened in Tanzania. I recall I spoke so brilliantly of John Magufuli bringing transformation and things before he died. But now the Africa spirit has taken up. What I just feel is that obviously she's not alone in Tanzania. There are those who are expected to carry out the checks and balances. But what we have noticed in Africa is that the president takes it all, enormous power. And some of these things go unchallenged. And by the way, these characters have always been in the government. They are just been reshuffled to probably occupy more prominent offices. And I think she must have learned an adage in Yoruba that which means
what's that? What language is that?
You don't say because your daughter has big bomb that you now put beads on that of another person's daughter. It's a local adage saying that no matter what, when you make a heap,
a justification for nepotism,
which is exactly a confirmation of nepotism. But you see, what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore to move that region from a third world to first world country when he picked it up in 1965 when leaving Malaysia was meritocracy. That if you must function in here, you must merit it. So because nepotism has little to offer when a nation thinks about sustainable development. But here we are in Africa. You see the example in Cameroon and some other countries where we have sick-tight leadership. So it's really a tough one. And imagine the violence that visited the last election in Tanzania. These leaders cannot be bothered. They just go on. And interestingly, while some citizens may be complaining, it's party time for some. So that is a mix. So they start celebrating, oh, it's 10 by 10. It's now your turn, you know. And that is not how to develop a society. Africa needs to be developed. Otherwise, the Western countries will continue to exploit us by our own choice. And of course, if we keep our doors open for that, who are we to now complain about poverty? So I wish the Tanzanians the boldness to engage for sustainable development. You know, by year 2030, the SDGs, the agenda will be evaluated. So where will Africa be, except for Rwanda, for instance, that is trying to catch up with the mandate of the SDGs. But for many other countries, so far behind. And those who are moving forward, they will leave those who are behind. You know, we deserve development in Africa. God didn't make a mistake, blessing us so much with the resources we have.
Okay, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Jide Ologun, for, making it here. I know so many commitments, but
thank you, sir.
Duty calls, and you are always there to answer the call of duty. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.